Hi, so I'm Sonia. I am at the Coastal Research and Extension Center in Biloxi, Mississippi. But with place, we work across Mississippi, Alabama, and Northwest Florida. And I am going to talk about what I do specifically, but also kind of just the background and what you can do in marine biology. So a little bit about me. I have my bachelor's degree in biology, but I have my master's degree in marine biology. And then I have worked primarily as a science educator in classrooms, as well as an environmental educator in New Hampshire. I've worked on the intertidal in Massachusetts, along the beach in the Everglades in Florida. I've worked at an aquarium in Louisiana, and then I've worked across the Gulf Coast in Mississippi, doing all sorts of different marine biology, fisheries focused or sea level rise focused, or general education. And then for this, I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit about the people who are in the room. Put this in the chat if you relate to either of the questions. If it's a yes, type it into the chat so we can kind of get an idea of who else is in this room. If you've ever been to the beach, type that in the chat. That yes, you have. If you've ever been to a marsh or a wetland. You can type in the chat. If you like science. If you've eaten seaweed. If you're scuba certified. And if you are interested or if you work in marine biology. So you want to be a marine biologist. I have worked towards marine biology since I was an undergrad, but I knew that I wanted to do this before then. And looking back at some early 2000s magazines, I found this very interesting and definitely quiz that should be used for all marine biology students. Do you love to swim and be around the water? Are science and math your favorite subjects? Do you want to work with underwater animals? And if yes, then you should be a marine biologist. I laugh because this is just a small fraction of what it is to work with marine biology. And this is from a 2017 magazine in their dream job section. But it is funny because marine biology does work with the ocean, but you don't have to be working with animals. You don't even have to swim. A lot of it can be kind of behind the scenes. And a lot of kind of looking on the outside is this charismatic megafauna, the like large animals that are like really cute or awe-inspiring, like the examples here. And a lot of people want to get into marine biology to work with them, but there are a lot of other animals that maybe are cool in their own way, but don't get all of the attention, and are just as important. And I've worked with a lot of these and less the charismatic ones. And so I am a marine biologist, and marine biology is the study of the living things, the plants and the animals and the other living organisms in the ocean, whereas marine science is the study of the ocean and its ecosystems and the life forms, and so less of the biology and the living parts. And for me, and for others, why I study marine biology is that 40% of the world's population lives within 100 kilometers of the coast. In the United States, 1 in 6 jobs is marine related, and consumers, US consumers, spend over $55 billion annually for fishery products, and 90 million people visit the US beaches each year. So our connection to the ocean comes from being close, living close, visiting, consuming products that were related to the ocean, or working in a field that is connected to the ocean. And the ocean is huge in regulating our climate, the air we breathe, It is 76% of transportation and trade, involves some marine transportation. We have recreation and food and medicine, as well as our economy being tied to goods and services related to the ocean. And then we have all the different categories of marine ecosystems, where within an ecosystem, you have the biotic, the plants, the animals, the bacteria, and you have the abiotic, which are the non-living, so the geological shape or the physical, the temperature, the currents or the chemical and the chemical concentrations of the carbon, nitrogen, or trace metals that are in that water in those ecosystems. And there are different ocean ecosystems that all relate to marine biology, and you could focus on a wide range of them. And when I worked at the aquarium, I had to kind of know a little bit of information about all of these, but some people spend more time diving down into one specific thing. So you have your coral reefs, mangrove forests, the deep sea, the open ocean, kelp forests, polar seas, salt marshes, and rocky shores. And if you want to pursue marine biology as a career, the outcome kind of depends on what you specifically want to do. So it does not mean that you have to have a marine biology or a marine science degree. You could have marine science, you could be biology, geology, ecology, oceanography, or zoology, and have that kind of general science understanding, and then get more experience working in a career or in a job. If you do want to have a research position and work in a lab, a PhD is helpful and oftentimes essential to be able to do research. And then skills, having research skills, knowing how to do a literature review to find the gaps and needs of current research, to plan a research question, to design a study, collect and then analyze the data and publish the results. All of those skills are really helpful regardless of how you're working in marine biology. Having teamwork skills to be able to work collaboratively with people who are doing the same thing as you, or people who are doing different things, or being able to share your knowledge or your research with people who are not scientists. And then analytical skills, being able to analyze data in a way that is insightful or new, helps all science and also helps for marine biology. And then what does a marine biologist do? So I've worked in the kind of education side of it, but we have a huge range of, you could be a researcher, you could be a professor, teacher, an environmental consultant, natural resource manager, a fisheries biologist, environmental lobbyist, naturalist. You could be a marine illustrator and do designs for textbooks or other publications. You could work at an aquarium or do biotechnology or aquaculture. And so for me, my education background, I have my undergrad degree from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. And while I was getting that undergraduate degree, I was in the 3Cs program through Northeastern. And so this is an immersive marine biology focused program that Northeastern offers for undergrads and for grad students. And you explore 3 different ecosystems, 3 different seas. And in the time that I was there, we were in Nahant, Massachusetts, so in the Atlantic Ocean. And then we spent some months in Panama, both on the Caribbean side and the Pacific side. And then we spent the final few months of the program in Washington State, the Friday Harbor Labs. And so for this program, we were able to study statistics and how to design an experiment, but also inverts, rocky shore ecology, coral reef ecology, fish, tropical fish, as well as fish from both of the other oceans, marine mammals and birds, ocean currents. And so it's really an in-depth experience of the kind of breadth that marine biology can cover in 3 very different places. So you can compare the animals and the plants and the habitats between all of them. And then I have a master's degree in marine biology from Nova Southeastern University in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And while there, I was in the fisheries research lab. And so I worked looking at the reproductive timing and periodicity of 2 recreationally caught fish. And so I was looking at the blackfin tuna and the little tuni, and would take their gonads and create slides from them to be able to look at the microscope and see when they were spawning, when they were kind of moving into different areas to do that, and being able to put together a research project based on these recreational fish that don't have a lot of management on them. And the cool thing about working with that program is we partnered with worked with a lot of fishing tournaments and local fishermen, so that when they would catch these fish, we would just take some of the samples that we needed so that they could continue to use the fish if they were going to eat it. But we would be able to take samples to do our research on and not have to go out and be fishing all of the time, kind of partnering with people who are already catching the fish. And then, so the picture on the left is of me creating a slide from a gonad sample, but also doing a lot of other lab work to do PCR, done a lot of field work, and it's been really cool to be working in a lot of different ecosystems where we've done rocky shore, gone out on shark tagging trips, looking at coral reefs using quadrats, doing surveys from a boat, doing collecting fish in a net on a boat, and then doing a survey of what was in that catch. In Mississippi, I work with a group that does a lot of living shoreline research, and so it's finding ways to use the natural habitat in green infrastructure. And so for a living shoreline, it's taking marsh plants and maybe some breakwaters and putting them in a place where they can thrive on their own with just a little bit of help. And so in this example, it is the top is the before, and so it was just kind of like a yard that kind of abruptly ended in some rocks in the water, and so graded down the slope, planted 2 species of marsh grass in here, and then have a breakwater so that it kind of reduces the wave. And you can even see like the waves on this side are stronger than the ones back here. It's more calm, and it just allows the plants to have less erosion impacts. And this group also does work with tide gauges and a lot of drone. These images were both from the drone to take large pictures far away of shorelines. A lot of scuba diving. You don't have to be scuba diving to be in marine biology. It definitely helps you get closer to certain ecosystems, and taking equipment down using quadrats or slates to record data while you're underwater. And then me specifically, I work in a lot of education. So I've worked in aquarium and had animals like an iguana and snakes and other animals that I've taken out and held for people to touch and to interact with. But we've also gone out into the field and done seine netting, worked with youth volunteers or outreach events where we're just talking with people about any of the topics, whatever ecosystem we're near. We've done tree planting and restoration of wetlands and near shore forests. And with my current work, I am an education coordinator with PLACE SLR. So this is the Program for Local Adaptation to Climate Effects, Sea Level Rise. And this program is based out of the Mississippi State University Coastal Research and Extension Center. And we work along the northern Gulf of Mexico. So we work in coastal Mississippi, Alabama, and Northwest Florida. So we're affiliated with both Mississippi, Alabama Sea Grant and Florida Sea Grant. And so some of the work that I do with sea level rise is that first, I help people understand what is sea level rise and what is sea level. So sea level is the starting point of water depth. Waves and tides affect our perception of sea level, but they aren't taken into account when we measure it. And we measure sea level by using tide stations. So those are in place along the coast, as well as satellites, which are in outer space. And so it can give a bigger picture and not at a specific location. They're not tied down like a tide station is. And there are 2 main causes of sea level rise. You have melting land ice. So this is ice that is on land. And when it melts, it flows into the ocean. So it's adding more volume. And then we have thermal expansion of water. And so as water gets hotter, those molecules take up more space. And so just the fact that the oceans are getting warmer, that water is taking up more space. So between melting land ice and the thermal expansion of water, we have sea level rise. And let's see, this might move here. It's going. So with sea level rise, it might just be a couple inches in certain places, but small rise causes big changes. It can change how the water moves and leads to erosion and changes the structure of the shoreline, so that as more sea level rise happens, you have this kind of landward encroachment. And then if you have a storm, that stormwater can go in further. So storm surge goes in further or is deeper in areas where it was already, because of sea level rise. And sea level rise does not just impact sandy shores that are low slopes. It can impact wetlands. And in this case, this is a wetland that's having to kind of keep up with sea level rise. And kind of the two opportunities for wetlands are either to move inland, and in that case, this graphic, the water comes up, the plants behind kind of die from the salt water, and the wetlands can move in. Or some wetlands are able to accrete more sediment and kind of grow up taller as that sea level rises. And it's important to be studying and looking at your local impacts from sea level rise, because sea level is not the same everywhere. We have different experiences of sea level depending on where you are. These arrows show the direction and magnitude of sea level rise, or the opposite. So some in the very northern parts in Canada and Alaska, you have the arrows pushing down. And then you have in places like in the Gulf of Mexico and in Louisiana, you have really high arrows that are red, showing that there is a lot of sea level rise that's happening there. And the way that sea level changes depending on where you are is from a couple of different things. It could be the shape of your coast and how water moves. Also, water does not move all the same in the ocean. It collects in certain areas. And so it tends to collect in the Gulf of Mexico is where a lot of the water tends to move. You can also have a land that's moving. So if you have subsidence, the relation for where sea level is to your land, if the land's sinking and the sea level rise is coming up, you're going to have a lot of difference there. But there's a lot that we can do for sea level rise action. And so the main thing is to be talking with your friends and your family about any flooding issues you've experienced, so that you can be better prepared for your future risks. And even if you have never flooded, it doesn't mean that you never will. And so you can start to plan now. If you have paved areas, you can consider having permeable pavement or gravel so that the water can sink in. And this can work even if you're not on the coast. No matter where you are, we have rain, and that stormwater needs to go somewhere. And so reducing the paved areas allows the water to absorb and filter through gardens or the soil. Even if you don't need to have flood insurance, still get flood insurance so that you can be protected if anything does happen, especially with changing floodplains. Have an emergency plan, and that you communicate with your family so that if there is the chance of a storm and flooding, that you know what to do. And the more you practice and talk about it, the easier it'll be to deal with in an emergency. And then Project Drawdown has a lot of information on climate solutions, large and small. And so it shows how to work at the community level all the way down to the individual level. And so at Place, we are talking with people all across Mississippi, Alabama, and Northwest Florida about sea level rise and sea level rise impacts and solutions. I'm specifically working with high school students and teachers to create a curriculum all about sea level rise and solutions at the community level, and with a lot of local examples. And we also work with coastal residents, adults in the community, as well as municipal officials or people who work for local water management or utility organizations and companies to help them prepare for any changes in future floodplains so that their investments in their infrastructure is protected. Does anyone have any questions?
Awesome, thank you. It's really interesting. So we had a question on Huva asking, I think, if any job opportunities are available with your organization.
Yeah, so we actually have a couple of things right now with Place. And if you go to placeslr.org on our website, we have right on the homepage a link to put in an application. We have two or three positions that we're hiring for right now. One of them is a fellowship. So if you've graduated within the last year, the fellowship would be a great opportunity to get more into sea level rise communication and resilience. And so we have that fellowship. We also have a position for kind of like a wetlands specialist with sea level rise. So with our Place team, we have, I specifically focus with the education, but we have someone who works on the built habitat, built infrastructure. So she's more looking at people and our communities and our towns and roads. And we also have someone who works with the green infrastructure. So it's looking at natural shorelines or living shorelines or rain gardens, or working with wetlands conservation. And so the wetland specialist position, we do have applications for accepting.
Perfect, thank you. So what does a typical kind of day look like for you?
So every day is very different. We have a lot of different events, and so leading up to the events is a lot different than coming after. But for example, this coming week, we have a workshop on Thursday evening with local residents in East Biloxi, and we're going to be talking to them about their future flood risk, as well as other impacts in their community about having a local grocery store, because right now it is a food desert, so there is no grocery store. So we'll have an evening event with community members to be talking about how to find out their risks to different factors. And then on Saturday, next week, we have a workshop in New Orleans for educators in Louisiana to learn all about our sea level rise curriculum. So it'll be all day with these educators kind of exploring this curriculum, us leading them through. And then the rest of the week, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday will be a lot of prep. So we always want to collect evaluations from people who attend any of our events. So before the event, we have to print out or design an evaluation, print it out and be able to pass it out. And then after, we'll record it in a computer. So we have like a spreadsheet where we're putting in all the answers so that we're able to do data analysis. And so, yeah, and just this week, we'll have a lot of printing and creating folders and binders to hand out to participants, creating flyers and hanging them up in local areas so that people can come to the events. Then we'll have these events where we're leading people through conversation, taking notes, and then after them, we'll record those notes in a computer to be able to make sure that our next workshop is even better than the one we did before.
Awesome, sounds like you do a lot of great things. So we have another question. Is there anything that I can do as a student that will better prepare me to kind of get a job in this field?
So specifically with resilience or for marine biology, so we work in sea level rise resilience. It's kind of an up and coming field. There's not a whole lot of experience that you might have. We've been looking at some of the applications even that have been coming in for the positions we have open. And there's not a lot of specific resilience experience. So if you are interested in talking about climate change and sea level rise and how people can be better prepared for the future, looking for ways, either volunteering or doing internships now that work on communicating about climate change or doing resilience dialogues will give you the experience. And that's, there's not a lot of people who have that experience right now. And then if you are interested just kind of in general marine biology, you don't really know where you want to focus, definitely do volunteer experiences or internships so that you can kind of test out, do you want to work in a lab? Do you really want to do a lot of field work? There will be stuff that you have to do. You're not always in the field, but do you want to do a lot of stuff that's outside? Do you want to work with what type of organism? Do you even want to work with an organism? Do you just care about ocean currents and the physical characteristics of ocean water? And you'll be able to kind of experience that through volunteering and internships, or if you have labs at your school where you can kind of get some experience there so that you can kind of test out what you want to do before you have to find the job.
Great. Kind of following up on that. So there's not a lot out there for resilience. Is there any specific guidance you have for finding internships, organizations that do have it, we should look at?
So it is still, there are some like listservs that might be better suited for resilience. There's like a floodplain managers listserv. They might post jobs that work on that. Otherwise, I think your typical kind of marine biology job posting boards or internship posting boards would still include anything resilience focused. I just had a colleague who was moving, and she works in resilience now, and she wanted to keep working in that, but there aren't a whole lot of positions across the whole United States. I think she had maybe 3 or 4 that were specifically working with climate resilience.
Great, thank you. Can you go a little bit more about kind of how you personally got into this career?
Yeah, so I kind of knew that I wanted to do marine biology for a long time. I had family members who were scuba divers. I got scuba certified when I was in high school. And then when I went to undergrad and I did the 3 Cs program, I was able to kind of experience the broad range of what is marine biology. Is it corals? Is it fish? Is it mammals? Is it in the open ocean, or is it on the tide line and the intertidal? And so by doing that 3 Cs program, I was able to kind of try out a lot of different aspects of marine biology to see the thing that was the most interesting to me. And then also at Northeastern University, they do a co-op program. So they have like internships built into kind of like your student timeline for when you're taking classes. And so I did a co-op where I was an outreach educator and Marine Science Center, and was able to spend the 6 months leading outreach programs, talking to people about marine biology, talking to people about all of the coastline and their specific area. And I realized that that was really exciting, and I liked doing that. And I've been doing that ever since.
Awesome. Is there any other kind of just general advice that you have, either if you're still in school or trying to get in the field, just anything else you think would be helpful?
Definitely looking at what you want to do, and then maybe creating your own type of program, or like starting your own effort even in your local area. So if that's like, oh, there's no one doing recycling in this place, so I want to start that. And at your school, you create signs and flyers and you push to get more recycling bins. Something like that shows that you are able to take a project that you care about and make it go through and put the effort into carrying it out. So showing whatever it is that you are interested in, kind of going forward with that and creating your own program or leading your own type of volunteer effort, it shows that you'd be able to take something and work independently and successfully on it.
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you. So I believe that is all of our questions. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you everyone for joining us today again for Ocean Institute's virtual Marine and Environmental Science College and Career Fair, and to our generous sponsors. So we wish you all the best in your next steps. Thank you so much.
Thank you.